What are you up to? You've got nothing on your plate.
Oh, gee, I tell you, 3 of the biggest trade days ahead of us. So a bigger to-do list than those weekends on your farm, Gaz.
I've heard that
The to-do list is massive. I mean, the 13 players have changed clubs, 16 deals done so far. But you can add to that to-do list all the names you mentioned before. The Hornet, Jason Horne-Francis, Luke Jackson, Dunkley, Grundy, Rankine, Lobb, Hopper, Mitchell, Henry, Rioli, Bowes, Radaglia, and, as the Age reported overnight, Sam Weideman as well. A year to run on his contract and close to a move to the Bombers.
Was that going to help with the Jackson deal?
It could do.
Third round.
And Toby Bedford could help in that regard as well. So, there's Gunston, Fiorini, Frampton, Bedford, Sharp. So the trade period cut off Wednesday, 7:30. I hope the fax is working down there at AFL House because there could be a couple here that go the absolute...
I said the same thing to Dave Noble. Is there someone going to be left on the shelf?
The one that I worry about, the one that I worry about is Ollie Henry from Collingwood to Geelong, given Collingwood clearly want more, as they should. They want a first-round pick. Geelong are now out to, 25? They would like to think that's enough. I don't think it is, and they might get 7 in for the Bowes deal, which we'll get to in a moment, but the Cats at this stage are saying we don't want to split pick 7. We want to take 7 to the draft. I'm not sure, unless Collingwood do a massive backflip, how Ollie Henry gets done down.
What about 7 goes to Melbourne for 13 and so?
Yeah, I mean, you can do all those things, except Cal will tell you in a moment. I think the Cats are resolute on taking it to the draft at the moment. They've got a player in mind.
Oh, it might be the young midfielder Jai Clark.
Yeah.
Could drop their way.
Yeah, absolutely. So
he's a Geelong boy too, isn't he?
Yep.
So Jason Horne-Francis, we'll just start with him. I held up by a rule that I think I like to call the babysitter rule, and how the clubs get babysat when it comes to trading their future picks. Now, the league stops them doing that, the future first and future second in the same window. So in the many versions of this Horne-Francis mega deal that were being workshopped, that's what involved Port Adelaide having to do, give up their future first and second. Clubs can only trade their future first if they keep the rest of their futures, and they get to trade their future first, if they keep the rest of their futures, or they can trade their future second, third and fourth if they keep their future first. So it's there to protect the clubs from selling the farm for a quick fix, if you like. But in this case, Port Adelaide are trying to bring in a generational talent who's still a teenager and a must-have player, a small forward who they desperately want with the issues they've got in that part of the ground, who's only 27. So it's not like they're doing that. They're investing in their future, and this silly rule has stopped them from doing it.
Rules are rules.
It's a crazy rule. If I'm the power, I'm immensely frustrated by that if I'm Port Adelaide.
But in this instance it works, but there'll be other instances where it's saved clubs from themselves.
Well, we've seen the AFL greenlight the salary dump more this year. It would be nice if they loosened up on the futures as well, because that's modern-day trading. I mean, there could still be picks and players involved everywhere here with Jason, and North might end up trading pick 1 to GWS in the same deal, and West Coast could be involved, all those sorts of things. But this one was done. One of the, and I know Cal was all over it as well, the biggest trade that perhaps we've ever seen, and it was held up by that little bit of red tape.
So will bits of that deal still get done?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I think the bones of it are perhaps there, but there's so much involved. It asks a lot of West Coast as well, given they've got to give up pick 2, they've got to give up Junior Rioli as well. They weren't too keen on splitting 2. And then North Melbourne, giving up pick 1, you don't do lightly as well. But it all hinged on the power giving up those 2 futures. Unbelievable. Paul's
fishing on the 90 Mile Beach, listening to the app. Thanks for the entertainment, gents. Good on you, Paul. Let us know what you're catching on the 90 Mile. Maybe some yellow-eyed mullet.
So you were mentioning Ollie Henry. I'd suggest that the relationship with Collingwood is still pretty strong. So that is one that could be redeemed.
In terms of him going back?
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, I'm only saying that the deal to Geelong would be in some sort of trouble. I can't see that with Josh Dunkley, though. He has told the Dogs he's definitely not coming back.
Well, it's once bitten, twice shy, isn't it?
There's immense frustration when it comes to this trade. Not much movement over the weekend either since those initial negotiations between the two clubs had the Dogs resolving to walk into the pre-season draft, Garry, if a deal can't be struck. So Brisbane haven't come back to the table since that. The Dogs were going to deal. They weren't going to deal with Dunkley for 15 and a future first because it involved them giving up 2 second rounders in that exchange as well. The Brisbane Lions wanted 30 and 39 and a future third, given they get those picks in for Ashcroft and Fletcher. So Brisbane have since traded 15 to GWS. Now they've got 21
Bucks
there.
love that move.
Yeah, it's a high stakes move. So now you wonder if the deal will keep getting worse for the Dogs. Would Brisbane now, or could they say to Hawthorn, here, you have 21 for Gunston and you give us 24 back for Gunston, right? It's another way of putting pressure on the Western Bulldogs. Could this deal keep getting worse for them?
Well, then the Bulldogs will just go, bugger it. They may cut off their nose.
Yeah, well, they insist that they're prepared to do that. They've run down the road and they said, if this doesn't get done, can we live with ourselves for doing this? And they can.
So how do you reckon Luke Beveridge would be sitting there going, okay, so not only are we not going to do this deal to bring a couple of picks in and some younger talent, but we're gonna run him all the way, and we're gonna get nothing for him. I'm not gonna have the player, and I'm not gonna have anything coming back the other way. The coach isn't happy with that.
No, he won't be unless Aaron Norton bobbed up in a year's time and started talking about the same thing. And you go, Aaron, you saw what we did with this bloke?
It's a futures play, but I don't know whether
I understand your position from a coach's point of view. They'd be desperate to get something. This off, I don't know if this one's on your list, but Lachie Whitfield, is there anything? No.
Right. And the only reason I say that, and it's the same with Nick Haynes as well, is that Hopper will get done. That deal will get done. The hold up at the moment is Ivan Soldo striking that deal with GWS. He will be involved in the trade. Once that contract is settled, it gets done. So it'll be Richmond's future first, pick 31, and Ivan Soldo. That's been the deal that's been discussed for some time. Subject to Soldo striking that deal with the Giants, I think that trade will go through. So while they were still done separately, in the end, it'll be Taranto and Hopper in for Richmond and out 12, 19, 31, a future first, and Soldo. I reckon that's probably about right, Bucks.
Yeah, they've paid. They've had to pay.
Yep.
They've had to pay.
Well, they're two midfielders ready-made. I mean, you talk about recruiting 18-year-old players in. You don't really know what you're going to get. I mean, you're backing their talent, you're backing their upside, but with Taranto and Hopper, they're hardened. They're ready to go. They're ready to play their best football, and in the right program and in the right team, they're going to be very good players. More better than very good players.
Soft tissue and Cochin getting a bit older, so they've got great coverage there.
Yep, and they're in the prime of their careers as well. So Luke Jackson, another one with no real movement, goes over the weekend. Melbourne and the Dockers trying to agree on what happens after Fremantle hand over this year's pick 13 and their future first. Freo had wanted something back, and Melbourne wanted more back. So it's more likely we'll see a pick swap that's perhaps favourable to the Demons in the back end this year or next, and that's perhaps where the Sam Weideman pick fits in, or the Toby Bedford pick, given he wants to get to GWS. Forget West Coast for Jackson. The Eagles didn't want to use pick 2 on Luke Jackson, and now that pick 2, as we know, involved elsewhere. Jackson is the big circuit breaker, though, because that's holding up Brodie Grundy, that's holding up Rory Lobb. Grundy happens because both clubs have said it'll happen, and they've agreed on the financial terms with that, Collingwood and Melbourne. That's in place.
That means they've agreed on the draft pick then?
Well, Jackson has to happen first, or Collingwood would at least like it to, because they want more than Melbourne's 27 for Brodie Grundy. Whether they'll get it or not,
not in a great bargaining position.
It remains to be seen.
If they've agreed on the financial terms, they've agreed on the rough value at trade.
Well, they were on record as saying they wanted something inside the top 25, so he's near enough good enough if it came to 27.
Yeah.
Maybe
so as I keep saying, if they just turn around and go, well, but if Jackson goes, then they've got to get one in anyway, don't they? So
and then there's Lobb.
That'll get done.
Lobb hostage to the Jackson and Grundy stuff, given it's hard to see Fremantle trading Lobb until Jackson comes in, and then to the Dunkley stuff as well, given the Dogs could use the picks they get for Dunkley for Rory Lobb in some way. So there's dominoes everywhere heading into the last 3 days.
Tom Mitchell?
Yeah, I still think it gets done to Collingwood. This has been planned a long way out and was always going to happen late in the piece. So it was always going to be late on, subject to other things Collingwood have got going on, and they have got a lot going on. I still think it's a chance of not happening, of course, but I still think he'll get there.
What's he on a year?
I think it's somewhere around the $800,000 mark. Don't quote me on that.
Mitchell, for the next how long?
1 year.
Well, he would have signed that deal whilst he was the reigning Brownlow medalist, I would imagine.
Yeah, he's got 1 year to run on that contract.
So you stretch that for 3. Tom Mitchell would have to accept another couple of years at $200 a year, I reckon.
Would Hawthorn contribute a bit to that too, which of course is a distinct possibility.
Yeah.
Izak Rankine, not sure what the hold-up is here. Haggling, it was earmarked for Thursday and then Friday. Pick 5 is in there as the pillar, of course, and there will be a sweetener here in that the Suns want future picks for their academy kids next year. They've got a handful of those kids coming through, so they want future picks, and that's the situation with Jack Bowes as well. They want future picks, but the Cats traded their future second to Brisbane, so a future third might have to do here in a deal that sparked all this equalisation debate, given the Cats will get pick 7 in. Imagine if the Suns accepted a future third. Now, they're waiting, Gold Coast. That's why this deal hasn't been done, because they're hoping that somehow, some way, something else shakes out of the tree and they can get a bit more back for Jack Bowes.
You're on fire, Sammy. You are.
There's a lot happening.
Absolute peak at this time of the year. What about, just very quickly, because I've got 20 seconds, would North Melbourne take Dunkley if he went through the pre-season draft?
That's a good question. I don't think it's on the radar at the moment, but it'd be almightily tempting.
It's on the radar.
Well, I still think it's unlikely it gets that far, but if it does...
Well, it might be way off on the radar, but they put it up.
They got cap space?
Of course. Can't see why they wouldn't. Hunter Clark, I think we can rule out as well. He was the other one.
How could you not? More the question.
Yeah.
If you were North, how could you not?
You're duty bound, aren't they? They've got a glut of midfielders, but he's a guy, a best and fairest winner at 24.
But if you know that, then how does that affect Dunkley and what that Cam's prepared to accept, given that he wants to get out of town? Great work, Colonel.